everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone around the world. Today, before we introduce our speaker and I give it over to Amit, I will be giving a brief about GALF. GALF is a wellness aggregator based in Mumbai with pan-India presence and global ambitions. We provide corporate wellness ecosystem through our web app, mobile app, and customized holistic interventions. When we talk about customized holistic interventions, we cover all the aspects, be it physical, emotional, mental, nutritional, financial, social, and environmental. GALF has been dealing with various corporate clients from varied industries, and we pay a lot of focus on customizing these holistic wellness interventions whenever we are working with our client and customers. Now, with that brief introduction of GALF, over to you, Amit, to introduce our guest speaker.
Thank you, Neha. Clearly, welcome aboard all the audiences from across the world and many fans of Master Chef Ajay Chopra. Clearly, he requires no introduction from me. People have been loving him. People have been following him. And obviously, he's a household name in India. I'll still take liberty to share, my bit of introduction in terms of how I see chefs. So while most of the people who have known Master Chef Ajay Chopra have known him either as a host of Master Chef India for two series, have known him as an executive chef of one of the largest hotel chains in the world, have known him as someone who's been consulting a lot of food chains and restaurants and so on and so forth. The way I have known Ajay is not just as someone who is a brilliant human, absolutely brilliant human being who has got space and time for anyone who's making sense. But more importantly, I have known him as a business leader in the food and hospitality space. Now, that's a huge shift from the traditional, look and feel that we get from chefs who are either kind of binging on creating great cuisines and great food, or probably promoting a product brand related to kitchen, or maybe rolling out some of the other stuff. But when I interact with chef, and it's been nearly about 7-8 years that we've been interacting, every time I'm left with one or the other think about how business models are evolving, how the operating models are evolving, what are the new things that can happen in the hospitality industry or the food industry, how cuisines are evolving and how that can transform the industry per se, or the consumer behavior. Now, these are kind of mindset change from the traditional interaction that I've had with some of the other executive chefs who are also some of a very close friends. So that's how I have known as, and I absolutely have no qualms in saying that I view him as a business leader in the food and hospitality business. So that's, from my side, Chef, over to you. I would like to share your bit with our audience, your followers, people who love you in terms of how you got started, and obviously more about you and your journey.
Well, thank you, Amit. That was quite a glorious introduction. I don't deserve that much. I think, you've been a great friend, and I've known Amit for almost 8 years now. When he first walked in and he was living at one of the hotels as a big guy from Barclays, and I would meet him for breakfast, and so I think that's where we met, and the friendship grew. But thank you so much, Amit, for introducing me in this way. I think it became very important at a part of my life where I started to understand that the business that we are in is not just about feeding people. It's not just about making faces happy with good cuisine. It is also about running a profitable business, being on top of your game. Because as I moved out of hotels and became a chefpreneur, I realized that people were still looking at me as a chef. They were still looking at the white jacket, and they thought that I did not know anything about the business. And that's where I had to kind of open up my cards and start talking to them about numbers and what are the factors that would affect their profitability, and so many more owners started to come in contact and approach me just because of this business facet. And I think that for me kind of came out as a big one, where I thought that people wanted to open restaurants, but they did not have the know-how or did not have the business sense to kind of run them, because there's a lot which goes on behind the scenes of that one plate of food that comes in. having said that, well, my journey has started very humbly. I started as a prep cook in 1998. In fact, going a bit behind, um, I was 9 when I first entered the kitchen. I I
Wow.
I I made tea for my mom. That was my first, kind of fiddling with some pans. And my son is just recently turned 10, and he started to make tea. So I can
Lovely.
see some traits happening. And from there on, I think I just developed that interest of being in that place. Although I was studying, to kind of become a doctor for 2 years, my parents wanted me to do that. From my heart, I wanted to become an architect, um, but landed up in a catering college. Such is life. I think that's how it kind of begins for a lot of people. And but when I entered catering college, you've been a catering college student yourself. You would know that we have to study all the streams, but somehow my heart was stuck onto culinary. I kind of realized that from the first very year that this is it. This is going to be where I will spend the rest of my life. So, and from there on, I did pretty well in college, but did not get a job when I passed out. Did not get through the Oberoi Center, which was the most prestigious organization. Did not get through the Welcome Group, which was again very prestigious. So no management training programs happened for me, and eventually landed up as a prep cook in TGI Fridays. Every single day for those 7 months, I would think to myself that this is not what I was cut out for. This is not what I wanted to do. And guess what? The entrepreneurial um, thought process started from that very place. One night, I came back home very, very tired, and my brother was asking me, whilst he was just kind of giving me a back massage because my back was hurting. So he said, "Why are you so tired? What did you do today? Patthar tod ke aaya kya?" I said, "Yeah, somewhat like that. I was in the pasta section and I did about 350 pastas. And so how much do you sell your pasta at?" And I said, "About 300 bucks. Oh, so you almost earned 1 lakh of rupees for someone else." And
That hit you hard.
that thought went somewhere in my mindset and stayed there. I don't know for how long, because I couldn't do anything with that thought that time. But then I pressed on. I started studying more. From there I moved to Cecil, Shimla, worked as a commie for about 2 years, and then got through the Oberoi Center Learning Development. Now, OCLD is like IIT for the hoteliers. It is the most prestigious program that one can go through. 2.5, 3 lakh students apply, only 15 get through. So it took me 3 years, but I finally got through. And that's where my life kind of turned. And from there on, you join as, they say that you join as a cowboy, but you pass out as a chef. So 2 years was rigorous, 2 years was tough, but then we passed out as chef. My first posting was at the Oberoi, New Delhi. That's where I joined the banquet kitchen, worked for almost 18 to 20 hours every day, slept in the locker room for almost 6 months.
Wow.
So a lot of hardship, I can say, that kind of followed it. And then I moved to Mumbai at the JW Marriott in Juhu. And that's where I became the chef of Lotus Cafe, worked there for about 4.5 years. Did my stint there, was a good stint. And then in this while, I was also married. And then Amrita and I went to London, where I was the restaurant chef for a restaurant called Mintleaf.
Wow.
So I opened another restaurant for them. So then became the executive head chef for 2 restaurants. Did a stint for about 3.5 years, and then came back. I didn't go through well with the NHS for some reason. And then I came back to Goa Marriott. From Goa Marriott, that's where Master Chef happened.
Yeah.
And then from Goa Marriott, Westin 4.5 years. Then came out, opened my first venture called the Burgundy Box, which was a DIY concept. And that didn't work out. Left that, then finally went into restaurant consulting. And in the last 3 years as a company, we have opened about 22 restaurants.
Wow. What a journey. What a journey. From a very young lad passing out of the college, and I can understand how youngsters who pass out of the college look for the right kind of a placement in the right kind of a brand, to someone who's kind of consulted across the world now, opened restaurants practically in all the leading countries in the world. What a journey. Before I hand over to Neha, and she's waiting to ask you a few questions, I do want to kind of say a deja vu moment for you, chef, is that you said you wanted to become a doctor, and then there was a inclination towards being an architect. So if food was the medicine, you are definitely playing your role some bit as a doctor. And since your food is helping build the nation, you're definitely playing the role of an architect too. So on that note, I'll hand it over to Neha.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you so much. Okay, Ajay, digging into your journey more into that, you have done multiple hats, ranging from being an executive chef of top-notch hotel chains, being a co-host of Master Chef India, and so on and so forth. Now being an entrepreneur and a consultant. Well, according to you, I have two. There are two parts of this question. Which role do you like the best? And during this part of your journey, was it a well-planned journey, or were there, some opportunity knocks on the door which you grabbed and you had not planned? So how was this journey for you?
Okay, so part one of the question that, if I may just kind of, I think I lost the first. The second part is that was it planned?
Yes, and the first part is which one is your favorite role from all these don't hats you have put on?
Okay, so I think I'll answer the second question first because that will lead into the answer to the first question.
Perfect.
Nothing was planned. Apart from the fact that I landed up in college, that wasn't planned. I did not get through any place. Then I landed up in TGI Fridays. That wasn't planned. So every step of my life wasn't planned. But I could say that, when you kind of reach to a position in life, that is where you start actually thinking that I must plan for the future. But with me, I think God had many surprises, packed up for me. I'm a firm believer in Him, and I know that He has plans to prosper me and not to harm me. So every single step which came as a surprise to me, He actually made it a pleasant surprise. So answering your first question, which part would I love the most? I think I like what I'm doing right now because I was always a kind of a person who wanted to wear multiple hats. I could never be at one place at one time. And I used to actually ask my dad that how could you, possibly go to the same office for 27 years? I just can't kind of get through that fact. And my dad said that this is how our life was, but maybe your life is different. And I think it is. So I traveled to one city one day. Well, I used to. This is BC, before Corona. So yeah, traveled across continents and opened restaurants, and I think I'm enjoying that the most.
Great. Now you spoke about God had plans for you. Now everybody knows you as a celebrity chef. Very few know, and I take this liberty of telling this to all of you, is that you have that spirituality imbibed in you very strongly. You are a spiritual person too. So can you tell what part of you has that thing in a way that how do you explain spirituality for yourself? And what is that spiritual awakening which helped you, in your life?
Yeah, was it like too much of hard work in the kitchen, or was it too much of facing the media? What kind of got you into spirituality?
Yes. And what is spirituality for you? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, again, there are many parts to this question. So what is spirituality for me is the first question. See, God made man in His own image. And that's what the Bible says, that, we are all in the same image, which means that all of us have the same eyes, same nose, which means that God would also look like us. So understanding who God is and who you are with God, for me, is spirituality. And I know that I am a child of God. I am not somebody who has to sit, below the altar. Yes, I admire Him, I revere Him. He is a holy God, but at the same point of time, He calls us His children. He's like the Father. And for me, that relationship with Him is spirituality. When you are able to relate to your Father, that's a relationship. And God and Jesus came to this earth to have a relationship, not to preach religion. So that for me is spirituality. How did I come to it? Amit, your question that, it wasn't hard work in the kitchen, but it was the understanding that, however long, our lives could be. So somebody gave me this amazing example. I'm going to use this wire and the charger. So, so this, if suppose, is your life of 70, 80, 90, 100 years, there is still a life which is going to be post this life, and that is this long. It's going on, so it's eternal. So it is a fact that we would either go to hell or heaven. We can deny that fact. We can stay in denial of it, that no, it doesn't happen, it's all karma, it happens here, it finishes here. The truth is, there is heaven and hell, and we have to decide whilst we are on this life, where would we want to go. With our works, we cannot earn anything. I cannot earn the ticket to heaven with my works, with my good works. How I can earn it? By only believing in the heart. So this morning I was reading this, and the Bible says that if you believe in your heart and you confess it from your mouth that I am a sinner, I need someone to forgive my sins, and Jesus came to this earth to kind of shed his blood for our sins, and that saves us. And I think that for me changed my life.
Wow, that's very, very deep thought, Ajay. I think it's a process, according to me. You can't learn it in one day or in an hour. It's a whole process, I'm sure, which you would have gone through.
22 years now.
2 years now. So now
22 years.
22 years. Oh, wow. Okay, now you've mentioned that it has been 22. Any specific, if I may ask, situation or circumstance led to you to go so deep into spirituality?
Yeah, so I saw miracles which I never saw, so I was brought up in a Hindu family where, just normally how everybody would believe, you go to the mandir, you would do all your prayers and do all the things, and that's how I am, or I was. Till the time my brother, who actually first heard about Jesus, and he came, and my father had a heart attack, and we were in a remote place where there was no access of doctors. So I saw a miracle where there is a doctor who actually drives by our home that very night, and he actually tells us, after my dad got normal after a prayer from my brother, that this was a heart attack. How did he even survive? And the second thing was that my dad actually survived because I saw my brother praying, and I was like, how is this possible? I haven't seen something like this ever before. And that kind of led me to start digging a bit more. And the very fact is that Jesus is alive. He's not dead. He was dying on the cross. He died on the cross, but on the third day he rose up again. And he has defeated death. So the very fact man and human being gets terrified from is death. When will I die? What will happen if I die? Where is my wealth going to go? All of that. But the way Jesus teaches is very, very different. It is about not looking at this life, but looking at the life which is going to be eternal. So I found much truth in it for me to change the thought process. And when I dug deeper, every single day now is truth, revelations coming in. It's different parts of the Bible kind of talking back to me. It's not that something was written 5,000 years ago and it's not valid today. It is still valid today. Coronavirus and many pandemics like these have been written in the Bible already. These things must happen. That's what Jesus said. But behold, I will be with you till the end of age. He never said that there won't be any problems. A lot of people say, well, God, why are you giving us problems? He said there will be problems. But he also said, behold, I will be with you till the end of age. Now that's hope for everyone.
Wow, that's
lovely. That's very, very powerful. And ladies and gentlemen, that's Master Chef Ajay Chopra pouring his heart out in terms of his journey. I think absolutely breathtaking experience to just watch him speak all this and obviously hear him too. And I wish you best on your for this spiritual journey, Ajay. Over to you, Neha, for the next question.
Okay, Ajay, now moving to the food and nutrition part now, I think food is something which I should talk to you about. Well, I'm taking an aspect of, these lifestyle diseases, including stress-related depression and anxiety, which people, are facing nowadays. How do you think that food can be used, or nutrition can be used as a therapy or a medicine for solving these problems? I'm sure there are some foods, there are lot of remedies which are related to nutrition to solve these lifestyle diseases, especially focusing on depression and mental illness.
All right. So I'm glad that you started, this whole conversation. I know that it wasn't planned and it just happened, and God has a reason for all these things. So I'm glad that you started with spirituality, because what I'm going to speak now is also going to be related to how this all kind of intertwines with everything. God made this earth, just as, I'm a father, Amit is a father. Before we became fathers, we actually prepare our house for the baby to come in. We prepare everything for the baby to come in. We don't go out running and shopping after the baby is coming. So exactly in the same manner, God made this earth for the human being that he was making. Now, every single medicine that is derived on this earth is derived from a natural source, right? It's a scientific fact. Now, I am a diabetic person because it runs through my genes. It's been 10 years. My diabetes had shot up to a fasting sugar of almost 220. But last week, I measured my sugar. It is 95, very much in control. Now, few things that I am doing to control this. Actually, it's not me doing, it's my wife helping me to do in a big way. So she got a plant named insulin. It's available in Amazon. All right. So I have a leaf of that plant every single morning without anything. I heard about cinnamon water. I started to do that. Amit, this man sitting in the center, is been a great help and a source of motivation to kind of keep telling me that, buddy, you need to lose weight.
Pestering is more like the better word for that.
Yeah, and I told him that, buddy, I will not be able to lose it. And we have a picture together a year back, and I know for a fact that I have lost 10 kgs from there. All right, this is with the help of friends like Amit, a wife like Amrita, and also some bit from my side where we are trying to do stuff. Now all this happens when you realize that, boss, now is time. Stress leke to kuch hoga nahi. Right? If you, I'm diabetic now. Now what do I do? I can be stressful about it, or I can do something about it. So, well, eating an insulin leaf in the morning can help you. Cinnamon water can help you. Food is actually a medicine. The way we eat, what we eat, how we eat. Now, I know that I love sweets. I just love sweets. I can't go without them. I have to have a small bite after my meal. We've had this discussion, Amit, and I've been wanting to get away from that, but I'm not able to. I think if I do that, I'll lose another 10 kgs very quickly. But that's a battle that I'm fighting right now, and I'll be honest about it. But the fact is that if we eat right, we will feel right. And that is how God made this earth. Anxiety is something that we take on our own selves, about the fear of unknown, about the fear of what will happen to my life after this, after that. So all of these fears are going to be absolutely nil and void if you start doing something about them. Those fears will start converting themselves into joy. And that's what we really need.
Good. I will still take liberty to dwell more into cuisines and food, and Neha being our wellness specialist, I think she kind of always like to enrich the world with the knowledge about specifically her area of expertise, which is mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. And obviously she's great at physical wellness too. But, I think you kind of bordered around some aspects of food, but we will dwell further more about it. So, chef, for all who people on the call know that he's got a huge amount of fan base, and their clientels ranging from the top brands in the world to some of the top celebrities to who's who of the world of business. So all have kind of eaten out of his hands. So my question here is, and before I jump into a cuisine and a specific dishes and stuff like that, is that I have always heard right from my childhood that every chef has their magic mantra. Okay, now whether it is someone who is probably a small time, who started as a small time, a snack provider and made it very, very big. They say, oh, they have a magic masala, which only the family knows. So in your case, given that who's who are kind of raring to eat out of your hands every time, what's your magic mantra, and how did you ended up cultivating it, or is it just a fad?
Well, I think, it's not a fad. It is a given thing that there is that touch, of a chef that he brings into the dish. Um, the unfortunate part is that in Indian food, we were not able to find that touch out for a long, long time because people kept it as a big secret. But my generation and the chefs after us have started to decipher a lot. And now that YouTube is, kind of public for everyone, you actually can make very good dishes just looking at a YouTube video. But does that make you a chef? No. What you can do is that you can teach more, and that's exactly what I'm doing, because I think all of us learned that the more you teach, the more you will grow. My mantra, I won't call it a magic mantra, but my mantra has been that learn, give, learn, give, learn, give, and I think that's how I kept increasing.
And that's kind of how the vibes came back and your food kind of started getting better, right? Now, chef, I have seen you, and I've been at the luxury point, probably, if I may say. I've eaten Indian out of your hands. I've eaten Italian at one of the best restaurants in Mumbai. I probably go with you. I've eaten, obviously, other cuisines too. But given that you're doling out all of them so nice, I wanted to know which cuisine is your most favorite, and there will be a second part of the question, which I will reveal once you've answered this one.
Please do not judge me after this answer, but I love Chinese food.
Wow. and suddenly I saw 50% of people dropping out.
Okay, not the bats and the crickets and the scorpions.
Okay, yeah. Everything Chinese seems to be under the scanner these days, right?
I think to make just the mood light, Amit, I'll give it over to you soon. When you talk about Chinese food here, Ajay, now there's a Chinese food, and then there's a Punjabi Chinese food.
Yeah.
So can you just go talk about this a little bit more?
Yeah,
I think this is us. Punjabis are people who love to embrace things. I mean, you meet a newbie, or you meet somebody who's come new to town, we will hug him and say, "Oh, ki hal hai pai?" That's how we are, right? So Punjabis have always done this to everything, whether it's fashion, food. So when the Chinese came here, they hugged Chinese food in the same manner, and they said, "Koi gal nahi yaar, asi gobi manchurian banavange." So that's how we've taken their Chinese food and made it our own. And I think it's our own country that has done it in this manner. We love chatpata. We saw there were sparks of something that we could work on. And I think it just improved and improvised, and Indian Chinese became a cuisine by its own, where the Chinese are actually threatened by the fact that, boss, a country as big as India is eating not our Chinese, but their own version of Chinese. So
yeah, I was in Singapore, Ajay, and there were two restaurants side by side. One was Indian Chinese and one was Chinese. And the Indian
Chinese was more busy. Yeah.
Yes. That was the thing.
Yeah, so I think we are more driven by our tongue. What we realize that, oh, I like this, I love this, I will only go there. Whilst I say this, I also want to technically say that why I like Chinese food is because technically the pure Chinese food is very difficult to make. They work with very few spices, they work with very few flavors, and they achieve a lot of depth in it. So if you have, let's say, for example, Hainanese chicken rice, there are only 4 ingredients in that whole dish, but it just is so flavorful. So they really know how to derive the best flavor out of anything. That's what I love about the Chinese.
Wow, that's some good knowledge. Yes. Over to you, Amit.
Thanks, Neha. And it was absolutely a brilliant question. I think Indian Chinese is everyone's, kind of a thought process these days, and seems like everyone is experimenting with them, being on quarantine. So, Chef, I've been a big fan of your web series, and I keep on bouncing, leaving comments time and again when you're doing Insta Live. You must have seen it already. So, I see that you're very, very earthy, very, very grounded. I mean, there are comments like, माँ ये कहती थी, and then when you're rolling out a masala chai and you say mama कहती थी कि samosa होना चाहिए, chai के साथ कुछ होना चाहिए, and then Amrita, your wife, and she's kind of standing next to you a lot of time, and you guys are creating cuisine out of, hey, nothing should go waste, and we'll talk about that a little more later. So you're so earthy, you're so grounded, you've got a strong family kind of a view, right? But at the same time, as a chef, you have your opinion because you're a trained chef, If I have to kind of ask you a very smart question about who makes better food, your mother or your wife, which one would you kind of rate for?
My mother will never get on Zoom, and my wife knows how to operate Zoom. My wife makes better food than my mother. No politics here.
Okay, lovely, excellent. Yeah. So, is there any part of your food you think that has got inspired from these two wonderful ladies?
Three actually. It's Amrita's mom as well. She's an exceptional cook, and
Mhm.
I kind of derive something again from the Bible where people say that मेरी माँ का खाना बहुत tasty है या मेरी दादी का खाना बहुत tasty, and I always ask them why. There has to be a reason why you say this, and people have no answer. They said no, they put love in it. So I said, okay, listen, hey, I'm a chef and I'm talking technical. If you put salt in something, it becomes salty. If you put chili in something, it becomes spicy. If you put love in something, it becomes tasty. Now that's not abstract. That has to be something which is more verbal, right? So then I go back and I read this thing about love in the Bible. It says love is patient, love is kind, and hey, I get my answer. If you cook anything patiently, it will turn out good. If you treat your ingredients with kindness, it will turn out good. And that's what I saw in Amrita's mom, that and each mom, actually my mom as well, that whenever you have to cook something, if something has to be bhuna out for 20 minutes, hey, it cannot be 15 minutes. They will go all the way till 20 minutes, and that is how the flavor will come. So I think when I see these three women, um, I have derived a lot from them. In fact, our restaurant in Minnesota, which we opened, has got some of the family recipes from Amrita's home and some of the family
Wow.
recipes from my home, which we actually took to the US. I gave it a modern twist on the plate, but the recipes are very, very classic. So we have an Angus Shami kebab. We have a nihari from her home style. We have a yakhni pulao from her home, and that is
Wow.
actually happening at Rag in Minnesota.
Lovely. And given that you have over 22 babies spread across different countries, doling out the finest food to everyone, which one is your favorite? And now this is going to be a very, very difficult one for you, because you kind of fed them all with equal love and passion. But
You answered it for me. I have no favorites, and I love all of them equally.
Mhm.
Although our your first project always remains to be your to closest to your heart.
Mhm.
And my first project, which we built with a realtor in Raipur, it was called as Ira, and it's a glorious restaurant. And it took us almost 1.5 years to build it, and so was Lanwar in Abu Dhabi. Almost taken us 1.5 years to build that restaurant. Both of them actually came out exceptional. The cuisine is exceptional, and it's just thronging great results right from day one. But just that this Corona has kind of stopped it, so we don't know what the future of these restaurants will be.
There you go, and that's a very, very important part, and kind of alluded me to the next part of the very important discussion of this session. Since you spoke about COVID, so let's talk about COVID now. The food, the restaurant, the hospitality business have all been badly disrupted. I mean, as it is, they were kind of under a huge stress because of the economic reasons earlier. And obviously the leverage and the debt some of these restaurants kind of take on before they kind of get their sheets above. And it doesn't look like it's going to bounce back so easily right now. I think restaurants, particularly in hotels and malls, are going to be probably in the last leg of the opening up, as I can anticipate. I may be grossly wrong, so I would like to prove wrong. So, less as a chef now, which you're absolutely brilliant, and people have already seen you up till now. And switching gear to what I was talking about as an industry business leader, in food and hospitality business. What trends do you see emerging? What trends are you seeing, foreseeing right now? And happy to see if there's interlinkage with any other industry that you want to draw.
Yeah, so I think a lot is going to change in our industry. To give you some brief examples, that if I had a restaurant in BKC, the running cost of that restaurant was anywhere between 50 to 70 lakhs a month, and my revenues were about 85, 90 lakhs a month, or maybe a crore. So my profitability was just about touching 20 lakhs a month, which would sustain a return on investment capital, and also my bank loans if there are any. So now nothing else changes, but the customer base reduces to 50%, which means I might be earning, instead of 90 lakhs, I might make 45 lakhs. How will I even sustain if I have
True.
45 lakhs making and 70 lakhs spending? That mathematics does not make any sense. So I think businesses will shut down. I know for a fact that Hong Kong, with its 15,000 restaurant base, will now open with only 10,000 restaurant base. I know for a fact that Indian restaurants will really fight and take a big hit. I see a global trend of whether it was highly acclaimed fine dine restaurants or normal restaurants. Everybody has now moved in to create gourmet experiences at home. And chefs like Grand Acats, who are number one chefs of the world, Daniel Hum, all of these people are creating meals which are curated and will be served at home. India, Mask is one example which I could never ever think that would possibly be sending out home deliveries, but yeah, they are. Bombay Canteen has already started. O Pedro has already started. So these Uber restaurants, which were known for their cuisine and were doing really well in the places that they were, are now looking at home deliveries themselves. So obviously, the big gainers would be the Swiggy and Zomato, and maybe more aggregators will pop in now. I think the other thing will be of DIY, which kind of would have taken off 5 years back, which that's when I entered, which did not take off, might take off now. Because these 60 days of lockdown, I would say 60% of families have been cooking at home and day in, day out cooking each and every meal. And it's been tough. It's been tough for everyone. So a little bit of a help, which actually is not a physical help, because you really can't have your maids coming in still. And I don't know for how long. I think these kind of businesses might throng, where a DIY packet arrives at your home with a recipe card. Boom, you take it, you make it. Then groceries online, recipe-based groceries will also kind of pop in. This is something as a new trend that is already happening. Big Bazaar is looking at it, DMart is looking at it, and so is Nature's Basket and Food Hall. So there will be different arrays of, who is buying what. So you could possibly have, a packet of chicken stroganoff, which has got chicken, which has got cream, it's got some gherkins. You don't need a bottle of gherkins. So all of these are packed nicely and given to you, and you're done for the night. You had a nice meal with chicken stroganoff. And you didn't have to worry about COVID, because it was all very well handled and all very well packaged. So
this reminds me of the one of the earlier ventures, of which at least I was one of big user and big fan. And you mentioned briefly that you probably did not take off well, but seems like the time has arrived for a venture like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think these ventures were kind of coming in and out. iChef was one venture like that. Burgundy Box was another. These ventures came in, but I think India wasn't ready for it. We are a kind of generation and people who either like to go out to restaurants or would like to order in completely made, prepared food. We would not want to get half-done things and then still go back in the kitchen. I might as well either go to the market myself, fetch my own ingredients and cook it myself, or I would, just order in. So this is the mentality that we were facing with. But I think now people will be more than happy to have, chal aaj ye khate hain, kal wo khate hain. That can happen now. All of this cannot be stocked at home. If you get a bottle of soy sauce, which is an imported bottle of soy sauce, will cost you about $600. You're only going to use 2 or 3 times in a month, right? And that's going to stay on your shelf forever. So instead of that, get 15 ml of soy sauce with that recipe kit, sorted. I think that is going to be something which the future is going to be.
Wow. I mean, that's something which is definitely a huge takeaway for our audience. We have, bulk of our audience are corporates working in large firms. We have young entrepreneurs, fitness enthusiasts, and obviously needless to say, a huge bunch of CXOs as a member base. And we would love to kind of observe more of you in this space and also the industry. Now, since you spoke about it, and I mentioned that, we have a huge exposure to corporate clients. So do you see, particularly in the corporate space, the face of industrial catering or corporate catering, will change, given the fact that wellness will be some of the, top things on their mind, including nutrition for their employees and self?
So, Amit, I think what will also happen is that I was talking to a doctor friend of mine, and he kind of explained it for me as a layman. He said that it's a virus. It's not an animal which can cling on to you and bite you. So it's a virus. You touch it and then it kind of gets in along with your DNA and starts multiplying. So this is something that's not going to go away from your life, just vanish from this earth, or there could be a vaccine that can just kind of take this away. You got to start living with it. And when he said that, he said, mind you, you have been living with HIV, you have been living with a lot of other viruses which are around us, but then just be careful. So I think that every time the world has been hit, and this time surely we've been hit very hard, every time the world is hit with something like this as a pandemic, it also creates lovely opportunities for a lot of other things to happen. So whilst we say that, yes, wellness will kind of pop up on the top ladder of people's mindset, I think immunity building is something that we all need to start working upon in terms of the food industry, in terms of the wellness industry, and in terms of just daily living, of what we eat, how we present ourselves to somewhere. I think all of these factors will make sure that, how our survival will be. And the very clear fact that Europe and US kind of faced such large numbers of deaths was purely because of lower immunity system.
So from an industrial catering perspective, if I can, reemphasize on the particular part of that question, what do you see probably emerging as a change, for the food that was served in people's cafeterias or canteens or, and such
yeah, so
like,
I think I'll just kind of complete what I started with, that, every food or everything that goes into your mouth now, you are going to be very conscious that, is it going to build my immunity? Is it going to harm me? Is it going to help me? So whilst people will still want to enjoy great delicacies, I think the new thing will be health and taste going together. All this while, sometimes we will just close our eyes and say, TKR, once in a while we had this, it's okay. But I think now that once in a while we'll have to change and opposite itself to saying that, I can't take that chance anymore. So I think industrial catering will be hit hard. There will be a lot of challenge. Now, I also represent Sodexo across the country.
Correct.
So we've already been having some chats that, a lot of corporates will start demanding for much varied and different kind of food. So whilst we say that salads might be good for us, they might not be good for us. It possibly is for an understanding and deep diving in our own cuisine, since very much spoken by our dear PM about being local and vocal. I think, there's a lot of strength in Indian food, which now needs to be studied and brought about, which are immunity builders. So it could be that you start your meal always with some haldi water. It could always be that you end your meal always with some ginger, lime, and honey. It could become a norm whilst you're having whatever you're having, but it could be something that, you kind of make it a habit now.
That's so very, very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. All these things will happen.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I would like to know more and more about it, but, just conscious of the time, and we want to make the best use of it. But we'd love to hear some more of these tips from your side, probably on your web sessions or any kind of a video record sessions, in terms of what are the things that, other than at an industrial catering level, you would probably bring in a change, but at home, what kind of those subtle changes people can bring in, which can help build their immunity. That was something which will definitely help people.
Look forward to a session with me and my wife on Instagram on the same day.
Oh, wow. Lovely. Sure. Definitely looking forward to it. And all the audience, don't miss this session of Master Chef Ajay Chopra on his Insta handle. I think that's something people have hugely benefited and loved. So please do follow him over there. Coming back to the series of questions, and this one is probably in every Indian's heart, and everyone is watching. So India is a nation of street food. Yeah, every city, every 100 miles or 100 kilometers, the places are infested with their own kind of street foods, their own interpretation of street food. Starting from a Golgappa in North, to Pani Puri in Mumbai, to a Puchka in probably Kolkata, to Gupchups in Bhubaneswar, and the same a water ball, if I may say, is kind of assuming different forms everywhere. And likewise, so many different foods. So I think people are nervous, Ajay. People are really nervous. Would they ever be able to, get hold of their very tasty street food. This when talk about you from North India. I mean, the kind of delicacies one get in the street food. People say, "Oh, यार 5 star hotel में भी उसका मजा नहीं है जो यहाँ में मिला है." I'm just saying, this is what I hear. So, what's your view about the street food?
Well, I think the you've put the pin on the point. The hardest hit industry, which happens to be 38% of the restaurant GDP. So if our whole GDP of restaurant industry would be 100%, 38% is driven by the street food.
Wow.
It's going to be the hardest hit because we all know that the daily wagers news that we are all seeing, 30% of them are these people who were street vendors, who are giving us pure, tasty food. But like I said, that whenever something bad happens, something good arises along with it. So I'm already working, upon a program where I want to take you back to about few years where Haldiram started to change the concept of street food. They made it more hygienic, they made it more approachable, and they made it more cleaner. I think it was time. I think it was time where we started eating right and eating clean as a country. It's unfortunate that it took away so many of these guys. But what we want to present is, hey, the taste was produced by that person, not by the shop. So we're going to employ these people into restaurants and the new wave of street food, which is probably on a modern plate. So if I am the chef of a restaurant, I will have 3 of these guys coming into my kitchen, cooking exactly the same thing. And I will take it and I'll plate it in the manner where you will pay $700 for that plate of tikki and say, wow, I love this.
Yeah. And that's one thing which I have always admired about you, Ajay, and not that just because we are friends, but I'll take liberty of saying it on a more in a universal platform right now. Is that I have always loved the fact that whenever I've interacted with you, there's a very strong sense of purpose that I've seen in your work and effort, which is kind of something, and I know my other executive chef friends will kind of hate me for that, but I've always seen that you are pursuing a purpose, you're pursuing a cause, which is helping not just you, but a larger set of people and enabling them to reach to a platform that probably they never anticipated. So absolutely best wishes for this, and if there's any way we can really help you being more successful on that that particular initiative of yours. And while we're talking about the sense of purpose and sense of cause, right, again, on your Insta handle, I've been following it very, very closely, and I absolutely love the way Amrita and you are leading that show, which is about don't waste anything, right? And I think particularly I saw that particular show where you literally made us a soup out of everything which was about to go and waste, so in your own submission, that really helps the world, that helps the environment, as you also mentioned in that particular show. So you've been very vocal about environmental wellness, as we say, and advocate zero wastage. And I think it is a great platform for you to share that with the rest of the world in terms of what's driving that. How do you plan to unfold it further?
So this example came to me a few years back when I was in London, and I came across a restaurant where a kitchen did not have a dustbin, and wow. They were not allowed to throw anything, which meant that they had to use everything. And if you go back to Cuisine, the French consommé gets its color with onion skin. The peel of the onion actually helps to give that beautiful golden brown color to the consommé. Now, if we look at that, it's just that how we use our resources. It's like using water. It's like using electricity. It's like using any resource today which is natural. We got to be now starting to become conscious on food, especially when we live in a country, and this is pre-COVID that I'm talking about. It's really sad that if we were growing 100 kgs of tomatoes, only 30 kgs was reaching our markets. 70 kgs, which is 70% of the produce, was either rotten or discarded because of lower logistics, or just that the farmer did not get the right price of it and he just discarded it. So it's sad. It's sad, but I think now God has his own ways to tell people that, get up, rise up, time to rethink, reboot, and refresh. So we will all have to start looking at this as our own thing. And the reason why I did that for the home is because that's where all of us actually breed in value systems with our next generations. And if this becomes a value system, I think then we've achieved what we want. Then we don't need to talk about it on forums and news channels and all of that. It has now become a home to home value system that, guys, let's not waste food. You know what? You didn't know what to do with it. I'll tell you what to do with it. I think that's where the whole thing has to spark up. And this is just a spark. It's not even the fire right now.
Well, what a powerful statement. What a powerful statement. If zero wastage becomes our value system. I'm a big fan of these powerful punches that come out of, some wise people like you. So this is something definitely as an aftertaste, that our audience is going to take back, zero wastage as a value system. All of you, please check if there's any wastage happening in your kitchens and make sure that you change your value system if not already. One question, I'm generally a big fan of this quick fire round, but just conscious of the time, I would rather like to ask, a more elaborate one. Given the fact that I'm a fitness enthusiast myself and inclined towards more healthy living, and that's what I preach to people as part of my business too, there's often a saying that some of the nutritionists and, some of the people of traditional thinking do talk about that say, hey, a nutritious food, a healthy food may not necessarily always be tasty. Your views about
it? I lost the audio. Can you repeat the last line again?
Yes. So, there's thing that we keep hearing about from a lot of nutritionists, a lot of people, some kind of traditional thinking that the nutritious, the healthy food need not always be tasty.
So I am a reverse. I have a reverse analogy for this. Anything that goes into your mouth has to be tasty. So, which means that the challenge now is, how do you make unhealthy food healthy and healthy food tasty? So that's the challenge I keep taking. And in the last year, we've opened 2 restaurants which are absolutely vegetarian, and we've come out with dishes which are very healthy and very tasty. It's about understanding the ingredients and what goes behind it. So to give you an example, we made a soup called as ABC, apple, beetroot, and carrot. And that soup was, I think, the best soup I ever had, because the combination of a little bit of that sour, a little bit of the sweet, and a little bit of the salty coming together and giving that robust, beautiful mauve color just lifts up your senses. And I think
absolutely.
I have to work a lot on the YouTube channel now. You are inspiring me to come up with more tastier recipes which are healthy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is patented by GALF LLP. And if you do watch that on Master Chef Ajay Chopra's channel, please don't forget to log on to our site too. Okay, so he's going to make all the nutritious food very, very tasty now. So chef, does it always, anytime happen, so for example, in these days, there's quarantine, and when I get up in the morning, I kind of understand my responsibilities that I need to do the cleanup of the house. So, I've been rechristened as the Mundu of the house. So in your perspective, when you rise up in the morning, is that something that Amrita walks up and says, hey chef, here's a apron, get ready, make my breakfast?
It's the opposite. Not that I tell Amrita to make the breakfast, but it's like she doesn't want to make an elaborate breakfast. I always come and say, no, yaar, let's make this now. When will we make this? So many times I'm not at home, but now that we are at home, let's do this today. Some days she actually says that let's just have cereals, and nothing else. It's a long day. Let's just finish with cereals. I just can't get to that I can only have cereals for breakfast. No, cannot be. Let me get inside the kitchen and make something. So I think it's me who's more interested and more, got that thing of going inside and doing more stuff, So that's me. But yeah, I think all of us during lockdown, whether it's CEOs or CXOs or me or you, we've all understood that, home is the most important part of us. And, cleaning it and making it and keeping it was always thought to be like a second grade job, but actually it's the most tiring job.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure all the CXOs who are watching us right now, they're kind of smiling. Oh, this is me. This is happening in my home too. I was shunted out of the kitchen yesterday. So that's what, we love to make, to personalize it for all CXOs, corporates, all the people so that they can relate it as their life. Now, there's a saying, and this is probably going to be my last one. I'm just conscious of your time because you have other series also starting. So they're saying that child is a father of a man, right? And I can see your young lads doing a fantastic job in kitchen these days, and they do with a lot of smile and a lot of love, which by your own submission is the main ingredient of cooking something great. Has there been any such moment when when your kids kind of rolled out something it really surprised and impressed you? Oh God, this was a better way of doing than probably what I've been doing in the kitchen for the last 20 years.
Every day something happens which says, "Oh, I should have done it that way." My 7-year-old son would come and actually point out, on something that I said about 20 days back, that you should not do this and you should do this. And I'm actually found doing the same thing. And he will come and say, like an inspector, "Papa, did you not say that you were not supposed to do this?" So I think they are great reminders to us. They're great mirrors to us. And I would like to keep, kind of look at it in that manner that, a lot of times we don't want to look at that mirror. We shun them off. We don't want to look at them in that manner that they're teaching us. And we are thinking that they are children. "Arey, tu kya samjhayega? Bachcha hai mera." So we can learn so much from them.
Lovely. So all the people who are watching us, make sure that you do introduce kitchen to your kids, obviously in a much more guarded way, and in a way that probably you are making sure that they don't get hurt. But make sure that they do experiment in kitchen. It's also a good place, as much as a laboratory or iPad or any other place for experimentation is. Chef, we are almost kind of treading towards the final leg. We just got 2 minutes left. What is that last bit of the message that you want to leave our audience with today?
So my main thing that I'm actually doing these days with the YouTube channel is to excite daddies. And you just touched upon this, that, to excite daddies to get inside the kitchen. So I named my YouTube channel called as the Big Daddy Chef.
Wow.
Now, the very reason is that, I'm big, or I was big and now kind of becoming leaner. I'm a daddy and I'm a chef. But the very fact that today all the children look at superheroes to be the Iron Man and the Superman and all these guys, right? Initially, on a Father's Day, what would the selfie be? My dad, my superhero. Now that somehow that my dad, my superhero should not remain to one day. It should actually go above and beyond. Now, brilliant. I'm not saying that cooking will make you the superhero always, but yes, it will make you a superhero, because when your kids, they love to speak that, "Oh, my dad made this today." And that's a moment of joy and pride for them. So that's one pillar. The second pillar is that today kids are getting dissuaded. Like you rightly said, that a lot of kids are just left with the iPad. We have no idea what they're seeing, what they're consuming, and what is actually happening to their lives. We know this child who actually took on to murdering 15 people in the US by just because his mind was so attuned with the video game, that he actually thought that, whoa, I was in a virtual world or in a real world. He kind of lost the balance. And that is happening to children today. They are getting dissuaded. So if we get them to the kitchen, teach them this skill, when it's a known fact that when man works with his own hand, the creativity starts happening. That's why board games, that's why toys which kind of need, a lot of hand and brain movement are much better than the iPad. So that is how you can actually get them to the kitchen, get them to bake, get them to cook along with you. It's a great thing to do, and I think it's a great engagement tool as well.
Okay. Well, this session was just as I had, presumed yesterday also. And I said that it is going to be more than just talking about hospitality and food industry. Thank you, Ajay, for giving us, lot of life lessons, I will say, when you talk about love, when you talk about patience and kindness. So Now, whenever I cook, I'm definitely, going to think of these points whenever I'm cooking. So today happens to be my husband's birthday, and I started cooking nihari, so I know exactly what it will be like when I give him at night. So yes, thank you. That thought will stay with me when I'm cooking it further.
Brilliant. So, Ajay, there's clearly a fan moment starting over here. Thank you so very much, Ajay, for taking our time and being with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Master Chef, a brilliant family man, and the big daddy of food and hospitality industry with us today. Absolutely going live beyond food, beyond what you have known him as, and I'm sure you all enjoyed it today. On that note, I would quickly like to thank our partners, the brand Garmin, Fasten Up India, Health Trek Healthcare, and Aramika Tea.
Okay, thank you everyone. Bye-bye.